Welcome to the Easy Speak Speakeasy.
You've unlocked the door to unfiltered mental health and wellness conversations. All right, episode 6
Woo!
at the Easy Speak. Super exciting.
Yeah.
We're rolling right along. It's April, it's nice, it's spring.
Almost.
Almost.
Yeah.
When's the official?
April 20th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We're almost there.
Yeah, daylight savings, so the days are longer.
Waiting for my allergies to fully take over
my
entire life.
Oh my gosh, I know. You and my mother, you both are so miserable. My mom, but like you, she like finds a way to not be here.
Yeah. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
pollen's coming.
Yeah.
I'm leaving. Book a flight. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah, she always feels good in California and I think Florida too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to just like skip around.
Yeah.
It's how to become a world traveler.
Yeah.
Just avoid allergies.
It's a good excuse. You guys are really miserable. It sucks.
It's awful.
Yeah.
The next
Maybe you can get ahead of it this
I'll be
year.
like,
Hi everybody, nice to talk to you today.
You do get that way. I get that
do.
way too, though. So I can't even say anything.
I feel
It's
like you get it more in the fall.
I do, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm
then,
walking
like-
around with like Kleenex.
Yeah, it's a really hot vibe.
Very sexy. So
So today I made us
Yes.
Tom Collins
yep.
to drink at the speakeasy.
Okay, this is my first time having one of these. It's delicious.
Yeah, it's a nice gin
What's in here?
situation. Gin and some Pellegrino, little teensy bit of simple syrup because we don't like sweet.
Yeah.
Some people make it really sweet.
Oh, okay.
And then just like some lemon juice. I mean, you know, I like a good cold drink that's lemony
Me too.
and refreshing.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6. And also, our set just keeps getting better. I just have to say.
And the people who are helping us with it. Shout out to all of the little angels. They're floating around this room. I don't know if we'll be able to hear the pitter patter of little feet. On the
I think we definitely will.
I hope we do.
Yeah.
Because
That's my favorite.
that will be,
Lets us know we're alive. you
yeah.
know?
There's action
Yeah.
happening. in
Things
the
are
room.
happening.
Yeah. Action.
Okay, so we're talking about autism today.
Yes, because April is Autism Awareness Month.
Yep.
It's a big month for everybody who has autism or is on the autism spectrum, or especially, I think, for families who are raising kids
Yeah.
with autism. And like sisters that really don't get along. I feel like is autism and mental health,
Yes.
which is why we named this episode Comorbid AF.
Yes. It's so
Because
true.
it's
Yeah.
like they just always exist together.
Yes.
And it can be so difficult to like tease out what's what.
Yep.
And it makes it really hard for advocating for families
Yeah.
for a number of different reasons. So I feel like because we did give this episode that name,
Yeah.
maybe we should start by defining what comorbid is, because I don't think that's a term that a lot of people know, but it's often used in the medical field or the mental health field or educational settings.
Yeah, for sure. So comorbid essentially is what happens when we have more than one diagnosis that's happening at the same time with somebody. And so autism, it's very interesting, you know, we call it comorbid, but it's also in the DSM, which is the Diagnostical Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders.
All that.
All that. I
Yep.
really don't like that thing because it's
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
exactly. It's like the manual, right, that we in the field use often to help us make diagnoses, and it's really helpful in some ways. And I think sometimes we rely a little too much on it. And in this case, I think it's really interesting because autism spectrum disorder is in there as a mental health disorder, but when it comes to treatment, we often treat them as different. And I don't, I think, that they're so inextricable that like you just have to figure out what the symptoms are and focus on that. I think a lot of times people focus so much on the diagnosis and then they get really prescriptive with how they approach it, right? Especially with autism. And there are certain things that are helpful, right? Like with autism, we know there's always that behavioral component. So we have those, the ABAs that will come in and help, which can sometimes be helpful. If
ABA. Ding, acronym alert.
ABA, Applied Behavioral Analysts.
Analysts.
Yeah, I think so.
I think.
Yeah.
Or analysis.
Analysis, yeah. I think it's
I
both.
think in motion.
Yes.
It's analysts.
Yes.
But the whole of it is
Yes.
analysis.
Right. So I can go down a rabbit
Let's
hole.
not start the
Yes, I can go down the treatment
acronym
rabbit hole because
life.
it's like with autism and mental health, it's very complicated. And I know that as a young clinician myself, I was very much like, I can't treat autism. Like it felt like it was too big, but then once I was able to like shift my focus and saw that they were inextricable, it was a lot more effective as an approach. But yeah, I think that speaks to some of what you're saying in terms of advocating for families, because people will ask for things and it's like, oh, well, no, for this, we do this, right? And it's like, yeah, it's really challenging.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that happens in the life cycle of a family is if they have a child who has any type of a developmental disability, potentially, or even a learning disability, immediately people start saying autism.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very interesting what's happened over the course of maybe the past like 8 to 10 years with autism. Like people had this view of autism that people with autism were nonverbal, were not able to feed themselves, really were kind of unable to function at all.
Right.
And I think the autism community has done an amazing job of advocating and saying, no, like this isn't a spectrum, and it goes all the way from being essentially fully functional with just, some impairments that just need some support, all the way to, yes, there are people who are nonverbal and need, a lot more support to get through a day-to-day life.
Yeah.
However, with that, advocacy, I think, has created this road where it's a lot more difficult now for families to get the correct diagnoses for their kids.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes I feel like I hear parents be very frustrated at the fact that the autism diagnosis has in some ways become like the new ADHD, right?
Yeah. It's
Attention hyper deficit disorder.
Yeah.
Where there was a point in time where everybody was getting an ADHD diagnosis.
Yes.
It was like the diagnosis of the moment.
Still happening.
It still is, right? And
yeah.
I think for us, we're always like, wait a minute, like, did you think about trauma? Have you done an in-depth assessment? Like, this is what trauma looks like a lot with ADHD. And we know that ADHD gets diagnosed for kids of color, especially disproportionately.
Yep.
And so that's a whole different episode.
Yeah, I know. Let's remember that one.
Yeah. But I think that autism now has become like a new, or like the number 2 diagnosis when it comes to what kids get diagnosed with. It just feels really easy, I think, to say a kid is struggling, they're on the spectrum.
Right.
And that becomes really difficult for parents in terms of trying to navigate systems and get the appropriate interventions for their kids if you don't have the correct diagnoses.
Right.
And I think this is where parents sometimes start to get really frustrated with providers, schools, other folks, because they're trying to advocate for their kids and what they really are seeing every day against a system that is telling them what the truth is.
Right.
And they don't necessarily agree with that truth.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so true. I think it just speaks to the challenges because, there are heavy behavioral components oftentimes when we're talking about comorbid, right? It's both. In the instance that we're saying, it's both an autism spectrum disorder and something else, which, by the way, happens all the time, right? It's usually anxiety and depression, and that comorbidity is something that happens often, but only really because of the way we choose to categorize pieces of information in the DSM, right? It's how we're choosing to look at behaviors and what they mean and understanding them, and then also everything else that kind of makes up a person's perception, And I think you know this, for a while I was live-in mentor was my role at a home that had how many boys? I think 9 boys who were all on the autism spectrum. They all lived in a house, and I lived in an attached apartment, and I lived there for 5 years. And part of my duties were to just help get them off in the morning to their various things that they were going to do, and making sure their medications were taken at night. And it was a really sweet gig, actually. But one of the things that was always so astounding to me in that environment was just how different every single one of them were. They all had the same diagnoses. If you looked at that, their binders, all the different things about them that were explained on paper, and then you met them in person, it was such a mosaic of individuals, personalities, needs. One also has depression and autism, and the other does too, but the way it manifests in their daily lives is completely different, just like humans, right? And so sometimes I think we overcomplicate things and try to put labels on things. Again, we've talked about this a ton because the mental health system is so embedded in the medical field, which is very pen to paper, black and white, cause and effect. And so the way that we approach it has been very prescriptive. But, I think more and more people are starting to understand the alternative ways of approaching mental health, and that's really great. And, I think we have amazing pearls as part of our Pearl service that know exactly how to do that to help everyone to shift their perspective so that it's more of a helpful and understanding and taking into consideration the differences that are just inherent in being human, you know. But yeah, it's challenging.
Yeah. And I think just as a reminder of what our Pearl service is. So Pearl is PERL. It stands for psychological.
Because we're fancy.
Psychological Enhanced Response Liaison.
Yep.
And these are our lived experience coaches. So folks who are experts in the mental health field. Also, they have different other types of expertise. Some have raised kids with autism and mental health. Some have raised kids with significant learning disorders and mental health. So there's a smattering of what their different expertises are. Expertises? Is that a word? I don't know.
I don't think so.
We'll have to figure that out.
Areas of expertise.
Areas of expertise.
Yeah.
Not expertises. No. Expertises.
Expertises. That's a cute word, though.
Expertises.
Their expertises are residential treatment centers.
I'm going to start telling people my expertises.
Yeah.
I could take that in a different direction that my brain's going in. I'm going to stop.
Okay.
Stop right there.
Wowza.
Okay. So They
It
specialize
is
in
Friday.
lots of different things.
Yep.
And they support families in the family's journey and where they are.
Yep.
Because they've walked there before, been
Yep.
there, done that.
Yep.
You had me at hello, Jerry Maguire moment.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think, especially with a comorbid diagnosis situation that happens.
Yep. The cameras are moving. There's so many things happening.
A little distraction.
I know, I can't help it.
Especially having a lived experience coach supporting families and navigating with comorbid diagnoses, I think is super important.
Yeah.
With autism and mental health,
Yeah.
I have seen time and time again and supported so many families with getting the appropriate funding for services with autism and mental health.
Yeah.
So this is something that definitely happens here in Massachusetts. I've heard about it happening in California. I'm sure it happens in other states.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But what happens is, especially I find state funders, they tend to look at autism spectrum underneath a developmental diagnosis.
Yeah.
And so families who have kids who really, have autism spectrum and it's super clear that there are, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Things that are manifesting around the ASD.
Yeah.
And then there's the mental health stuff, and there's 1, 2, 3
Yeah.
on the mental health.
Yeah.
There becomes this fight between like the state funders,
Right,
right?
right.
About who sort of quote unquote, air quotes, owns this kid. Air quotes again, because the kid owns themselves and the family owns the kid.
Yeah.
And then the state just supports the family because nobody owns anybody. But
Right.
they say it in the terms usually of like, who owns this kid,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so trying to navigate that is like literally being in divorce court and
It's
trying to like
So wild.
fight for child support.
Follow
and,
the
like,
dollars.
yes, because
You'll get to the fight.
100%, because everybody doesn't want to own the kid,
Right.
right? When it comes to
It's a long road, and it's a lot of money.
every day is a winding road. Yeah, and nobody wants to see all those zeros
No.
attached to their agency.
You're right.
And so then you start getting into this cost sharing, and then oftentimes it goes back to the school systems because a lot of times
Which makes them avoid providing services or
Right.
identifying needs for
Right.
services.
because by law,
You have
all
to.
kids are due the right to a legal education,
Right.
and individualized education programming, IEP.
Yeah.
And so then like this fight can go to, I'm using the word fight, but this
It's a
conversation can go back to, well, you need to start with the school district, right?
Right, right.
And the school district needs to provide whatever services they have. And then once you get those in place, then come back to us and we'll see what we can let's see what we can sprinkle on the top.
By the way, all of these things are so arbitrary because at the end of the day, mental health, all of it is a developmental thing. Like we're all developing humans. Like, they try to like put these categories in, and I'm like, if a kid's going through a mental health challenge, he's also going to have a developmental challenge because whatever is supposed to be going on in that area is
Right.
going to be on pause,
Right.
while that gets sorted out,
And
right?
and is exacerbating the situation.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
and so now what
It's just like-
ends up happening is you have the child who's going through whatever they are innately going through in that time.
Yeah.
And now you have a family with stress that's continuing to accumulate, and they're trying to be a good
know.
parent, and they're trying to answer all the phone calls and respond to all the emails, and they're not feeling like they're not getting anywhere, and the secret meetings, quote unquote. But it
Yes.
feels like they're secret when you're not invited.
Yes, there are a lot of secret meetings. Yeah, I mean, I think providers don't ever see it as being a secret because it's such a collaborative space. And again, I think I mentioned this last time, in the medical field, it's normal to collaborate amongst your colleagues about cases, or, you know, as they would call it, you know. But yeah, like, it's also because I don't think they understand that that's the perception from a family who's like, you know, which is a lot of the work we do, is helping people to like see other people's perspectives and like incorporate them, because when we do that, then we can really have a targeted response that makes sense, that, you know, works for everybody. But like, yeah, the mental health field, medical fields, we're all working in silos on the same things. It's kind of wild to think about, you know, but when you live in a capitalistic society,
Ding, ding, ding.
how can you separate the two?
Politics has entered the building.
How can you separate the two? No, it's just like the facts, though. It's like, the medical field is, like you said, we follow the dollars, right? And the dollars are so important because, and I love capitalism. I'm not.
You are a little capitalistic bitch.
I love capitalism. I think it's great. I think it's awesome for people to be in competition. It helps us grow. It helps us learn. Makes us money. It's all good, but the medical field should also not be so entrenched in that. There still needs to be like a humanitarian approach, especially when it comes to mental health. And I think that that's where we're missing the mark continuously. And it's hard to like filter that into policies and procedures, but when people are like open to having that discussion, I think change is possible, you know, which is why we have the pearls, right? Because we know that they can help to bridge those communication gaps, right? And things will get incorporated in a very seamless way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, the reality is that it's really difficult for families to manage all of these different things.
I am so stressed out right now.
What about my drink?
Your drink?
Oh.
In your laptop situation?
So for those who aren't listening, my drink is on the couch next to my iPad.
And if you've listened a few episodes ago, you'll know that our original Pinnacle slogan is,
"Will we spill drinks?"
So.
All right, I get it.
I'm just a little nervous.
Yeah, but I feel like I'll hold on to it. You know, I flail my hands around like
while we're talking.
As soon as I get worked up about something, my drink goes in every direction.
It's true.
Although this is a pretty contained glass
it's
situation.
like nice and if it was
now I dropped my cherries. Thanks, Diana. This worked out real well.
It's my fault. I just saved her laptop, but oh no, her cherries.
Let's stop talking about my cherries.
Okay.
Okay. Back to the topic at hand.
So, autism.
So I think one good resource that we have is our pearls, which we talked about.
Yes.
But also we have our Fam Bams.
Yes.
Which we
Bams.
have not done our Fam Bams in a hot min.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah. So Fam Bams is Families Are Magic.
Yes.
Our binder system.
Yes.
Binder management system.
Binder management.
Bam. Binder. Oh, man.
Oh, I can't. I won't be able to find it.
What's BAM?
Binder.
Something management.
System.
This is
We'll get back
called a terrible marketing pitch.
Terrible pitch.
Hey, marketing. We're not doing a great job right now with our marketing, are we? Silence. He's like, you're not going to catch me criticizing you on film.
Please insert the cricket sound and keep that in the final cut. Please. I just need that to be a thing.
So we have a course that we do where we teach families and guide families on how to manage all of the papers, because
everything,
even though we live in
not just the papers, because it's very digital these days.
That's true, but a lot of times families still get handed so many papers.
Discharge paperwork.
People are not saving
intake
trees.
paperwork. Yeah. assessments,
signing of releases. All these things are really important to keep.
Yeah.
To help manage all of these things, and then it can really help families in advocacy and in getting the correct things that they need when they're looking for funding or trying to obtain funding. We always talk about parents are the experts on their child, and nobody knows more. And so I think for us, it's really important that parents feel organized, right?
Yes.
Because there's nothing that throws you off your game.
Yeah.
Like when somebody asks you for something that you have, but you can't put your hand on it in the moment.
Yeah.
So having a system that organizes you with all of your kids' things.
You're so good at organizing.
So I am.
That's one of Kristi's, one of her many amazing talents that I'm like, oh, one day I'll be as organized as Kristi.
Did you like how when you said you're so organized, I was like, I am. That's how, people of the world, especially women, that's how you take a compliment.
Yes, you don't second guess it.
I am.
Yes.
Just fluidly.
I am, or like, thank you.
Thank you.
Right?
That's good too. I say I am. To somebody else, I probably would have said thank you. I should have remembered that we're on a podcast.
You're like, yes.
I should have said,
I am.
Thank you. I'm like, as a matter of fact, I fucking am.
No, but you really are. And I love that you have that focus with families because it's a lot to manage. We have this thing that we show, which is like a care map that shows a family's millions of contacts. I'm embellishing, obviously, but like all of the different people and all of the different areas of their kids' life that they need to be in contact with on a consistent basis. Just even managing communications is a challenge. So I love that, like, our Pearls and, our lived experience coaches are really working with people on organization, because it does make a difference when you go into an appointment or a setting and you know exactly what you want to say, the questions you want to ask, the information you need to receive. It makes everything better for everyone because it just makes it more efficient and streamlined. And
right. And these services aren't just available here in Massachusetts, just for people that are listening in other places.
Yeah.
We do everything remote.
Yeah.
So even if you live in Oklahoma,
Ohio,
hit us up.
Nebraska.
I got Zoom in Oklahoma.
Am I going to Nebraska?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, wow.
You are, for the steaks.
For the steaks, the Omaha steaks.
Right? That's Nebraska, right?
I think so.
Omaha Steaks.
Yeah.
Oh.
Door-to-door sales.
Yeah. I remember the frozen.
This is your dream.
I cannot wait to tear down some steaks.
I bet you're going to send
country.
me some kind of like video of
I'm going to work out like crazy for a week.
Like actually
then I'm going to go and
cutting
eat
a steak.
all the steak and get so much protein.
I feel like you're going to find some place where you can like actually cut your own slab.
Oh my God, with a machete, I will be living.
With a machete?
Yeah. Isn't that what you cut steaks with? What do you use?
A machete?
An axe?
Have you been to Shaw's lately? I don't see any machetes over there.
Well, if I'm going to a steak cutting place, it better be the kind with a machete.
I don't think there's Vikings that are
This is what steaks. I want. Well, there should be. That's a business idea, because I would go to that.
That's our next business idea?
Yes.
Viking steaks?
Viking steaks! Tell me that's not fire. Tell me it's not. It probably already exists, but that would be amazing. Yeah.
Viking steaks, if you exist.
A machete or like an axe.
Send this girl something that you know.
Please.
And we'll come visit you.
Send me, anybody, anywhere can send me steaks.
Oh boy.
Okay. All right,
So
is that a wrap?
I think we're getting close to a wrap. I feel like
Yeah.
we should maybe give a couple of resources other than just ours.
Yeah, we'll put
We
them
can
in
link them in the description. Some links for, there's some great organizations that specialize in autism.
Yep.
And specialize in advocacy.
Yep.
There are a lot of places that you can go to where you can get a free consult with an educational advocate.
That's great.
Or attorney that can help you if you find yourself in the midst of this system level situation where people are
Just ignoring you or
like, hello.
yeah, and not wanting to do their
Somebody,
jobs.
please
Yeah.
write a check and
Yeah.
save my family from falling off the edge.
It's just wild.
Help us.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think this is the last plug I'll do, but one of the other things that I love that we have is our resource library, because
Oh, yeah.
it has all of these different things on there, and you know, people can go on and search and hopefully find something that works well for them. We carefully curate that. We know that a lot of resource libraries just like throw things on, but we're constantly checking to make sure our resources are top notch and doing right by people. So,
PinnaclePearl.com.
yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like we're doing a wraparound to a wrap up.
A wrap around to a wrap up. That's a good one. I like that. I like that variation. Yeah.
You know, want to give a quick shout out to our slaying lady over here.
Capture.
Was
Holding it down.
holding it down, steady fire
Look at
the
her.
whole time.
I love her.
You know, thanks for coming to the Easy Speak Speakeasy.
Oh yeah, and thank you.
And
Oh yeah, and. Oh yeah, and.
oh yeah, and
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
and.
we're a wrap. No, we're not.
No, we're not. Just kidding.
April Fools.
April Fools! Well, because we have to remind people that we have our meditation. So don't forget.
Oh yes, our meditation.
So please stay.
And subscribe, rate, and review.
Yes, exactly.
On Spotify and Apple and Anchor and YouTube, where I think this is like pretty unedited on YouTube.
Is it?
I think it's like the whole shebang-a-bang,
Is it?
which I really am feeling.
It's the whole
that.
thing on YouTube?
I think it might be. I don't know. Mark's not answering us.
Same as the audio.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Never mind.
word.
Wrong.
You and I.
April Fool's on that too.
It's a wrap.
Wrapped up. Bye.
Bye.